Good afternoon, Dr. Sharma. Welcome, sir, once again to another session on mental health.
Good afternoon, Dr. Vasconcelos. Good to be back with you.
Doc, today is July 14, 2020. And during this COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of people are stressed out. And sometimes communication seems to be very difficult, sometimes even speaking the same language. So my question to you today is, what are some recommendations that you would have on how to communicate with a person who is oppositional?
Yes, good question there. And I guess we have to look at the age of the person that we're dealing with. So if we have a child who is oppositional, the strategies for communicating may be a bit different from an adult. However, general strategies are there that we can follow that would make that communication better. So, especially at this time, as you say, with the COVID crisis, there's opposing views, for example, about how people see the crisis, and we see clashes between people who are unwilling to follow certain regulations by the government. And I think those series that we did about the principles of ethics and why they're being applied, sometimes overriding our wish and their point of view is important, even for young people. So we got to have a respect that channels the communication process. If we're respecting the other's point of view, now we'll be able to listen to them. We may understand something different from what we know. And then if we want to try to make that change that we think is important because we may carry more knowledge, for example, a parent or child may have more knowledge than the child, it has to be still done in a respectful way of appreciating what's the child's point of view. And that's also, as I said, applicable to adults who may have an opposing view. I think it's critical for us to understand what is behind the other person's point of view. Sometimes we are listening to our own message in our own head, and we fail to understand where this person is coming from. Why are they so charged up about an issue? For example, a person may want the child to go back to school and be berating the system for not allowing that to happen. And when you try to explain to them that, well, you know, it's in the best interest of the child, they come up with facts that say, well, they're not at risk, the numbers for children being infected are small. So they may have a very convincing argument, you know, and they actually may have a very good argument. So we got to keep an open mind to persons who may have that view that's opposing to us, who may be the experts. Many a time conflict occurs, as you know, Doc, with people who feel they're threatened in their authority. So if I feel I'm a specialist in brain health and somebody's telling me something that's different from what I know, I may feel upset. But if I understand where they're coming from, why they're so adamant in their position, then we can get to a common ground and maybe start looking at some ways to change the mindset.
With regard to the mindset, what are some techniques that can be used for changing a negative oppositional person?
Right, so looking at the strategies now, so we agree that we should have an understanding of where the other person is coming from, some degree of empathy towards that person's point of view, trying to put ourselves in that person's shoes, so to speak. That would be, I think, the number one strategy, respect for another person's viewpoint. And following on to that would be now the actual method of communication. So I may respect the person's opinion, I may listen to them, which is really the critical strategy to listen. And listening is the number one tool in communication. Effective listening means really hearing that person out, not just giving them lip service and then you say, oh yeah, I heard you. Now let's get back to my point. So it's a matter of saying, I hear what you're saying. I appreciate what you're saying. I understand where you're coming from. this is this is my opinion. These are the facts of the situation. And then the argument can be based on evidence. So let us use data that is correct, that is from good sources, not gossip or rumors or opinions, but real facts to drive home the point. You see, so if we are using validated facts, then we are more than halfway there towards a successful outcome. So I'm hoping that we can get people to understand that it's not a fight. There should not be argument about my point of view versus your point of view. And one of the very good strategies, Doc, is to use the I word when we speak to persons of a different opinion. Rather than say you, even if we say you are not making sense or you are making sense, which is a nice thing, using the you word tends to be more confrontational. So it would be much better if we say, I can hear what you're saying, I appreciate what you're saying, I value what you're saying. It's important. Your opinion is very important. I want you to also look at my opinion and then see if we can find a common ground. So I think if we use that kind of strategy in all communications, we'll get to a better place. We see our leaders sadly not using that type of communication when they're talking to persons. You see a leader talking to the press in the you word. You are always making negative comments about me. It puts a person, back up. It makes them feel like they're being attacked. And that should not be. We are adults. We have to demonstrate adult type of language. And as I said, also, unless we're speaking to very, very young children, maybe about 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, when we start to deal with children, they're starting to have the ability to intellectualize and think quite reasonably. So we gotta also allow them some respect. I find a lot of times our adults and our parents talk down to our children, and it's a dominant type of communication, and that's okay in the sense that the parent is the parent and the adult. But again, open our minds to what that child wants can avoid significant stress. Conflict can avoid emotions, can avoid distress. We're seeing young children almost at the age of 9 and 10 trying to harm themselves because they feel that they're not understood. We had a case of a child trying to commit suicide, and she was only about 10. That's because the parents were not understanding her point of view about her preparedness for a particular exam. So I think that's the way we should communicate, using respect, avoiding confrontational words, understanding where the other person is coming from in terms of their opinion, giving credence to what they're saying. And if we have a better argument, present that argument by utilizing facts, validated facts.
Doc, but even while using those techniques, what if change cannot happen?
So that's also true that there are going to be obstinate people that are so oppositional, they're so rigid in their point of view. We talked using some series some time back about personality disorders. And persons with personality disorders tend to have what we call inflexibility of their personalities. And I think in those cases, we got to step back and say, well, here's my point of view. Please reflect on it. Think it over. Let us again meet if we can. Review it. Sometimes I find, it's very interesting that even with those inflexible persons, when we present that type of argument, that we're not pushing them to see what we're seeing. Maybe sometimes they have to follow the law because that is a different thing. But if it's not like that, where they must abide by what we say, then we're hoping that they will understand, they will cooperate, they will support what we're encouraging them to. But if it cannot happen, then we must step back and say, well, this is getting too charged up. I can see you're getting emotional about this. Let's get some breathing space. Let's take some time off. If you want, let's have a cup of tea or coffee or natural juice, and then let's try to get this thing in a different level. Let's leave this topic for a while. We can come back to this another day. So timeout is sometimes necessary when we're dealing with people who cannot change their opinion, and we can just hope that those words might affect them. As I said, I've seen some people who are inflexible actually change because they've had time to think it over. In that moment, they see it as giving in is a loss of their own self-esteem and pride and ego. But if we don't make it a battle, we say here, the issue is not about personality, it's not about me knowing more than you. It's about what is in the best interest of everyone.
Well, Doc, thank you so much. Let us be quick to listen and slow to speak. So thank you
Yes.
very much. Once again, your ability to communicate in a very simple way, very complex issues that is really helpful for everyone. And we need to listen to the experts like you and be guided with facts and by individuals like yourself who are professionals. And so I thank you as a medical doctor, as a psychiatrist, someone years educating people. I thank you so much for your love for people and your love for Guyana. Any final thoughts, Doc?
Yes, I just want to again emphasize that we got to all communicate better. Many conflicts can be resolved by mediation. It should not go to war. It should not have physical altercation. Too many times we see street fights and an issue being taken to the streets and there's violence. Human beings have to rise up above this physical level of resolving conflicts. And it's verbal communication, using our brains, not our brawn. So just to just leave that message with those people who are responsible. You're in responsible positions. Think about the position. Don't think about yourself. Think about what the position means and what is its value to you, and let go of your own personal egos. I hope that message can reach some persons out there, and that we're able to make a change in terms of how people interact with each other.
Absolutely, Doc. As we always say, there's always help. Just find the right help. There's always help. Communication is important. We have to communicate with each other, even when we are in opposition with related to views. And so it is very important. So thank you so much. God bless you, and I'll see you soon.
All right. Take care of yourself,